Now, with our GMA cover story and the rise of ADHD diagnosis in women, Diane Macedo is here with what's behind it and how women are finding help. And Diane, we know this was personal for you.
Yeah, Michael, I've always struggled with things like tidiness, misplacing things, forgetting things, but it took on a new level once I became a mom. I felt like I was drowning. Now I know why, and more importantly, that I'm not alone.
I always felt a sense of not being good enough.
For decades, Jessica Covington thought she was lazy and unmotivated until she got a life-changing diagnosis.
It explained so much.
She's part of a growing trend of women being diagnosed with ADHD, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. You say brains are different for people with ADHD. What do those differences cause?
Persistent struggles with things like time management, things like planning, things like organization.
A recent study shows diagnoses for women 23 to 49 years old nearly doubled from 2020 to 2022. That rise attributed in part to a shift in understanding how ADHD affects girls and women.
Girls present with inattention. They may not be jumping up and down, but they'll be twirling their hair, clicking the pencil, and they get overlooked.
Now, as moms, many are unexpectedly getting diagnosed after learning about their children's ADHD.
I started to realize how familiar it all sounded.
Others are being tipped off by social media.
I started seeing videos about women, particularly, who are struggling to keep their houses clean, or they start one task and then they do another.
Parenting influencer Libby Ward says those videos made her realize she might have ADHD and eventually get diagnosed. The same thing happened to me. As a best-selling author and successful news anchor, ADHD wasn't even on my radar until social media videos like Libby's led me to get evaluated by a licensed psychologist.
Is there anything in particular that feels tricky?
To my surprise, 4 minutes into the intake, I was in tears. I think all my coping mechanisms worked really well for me until I became a mom. And now I have 2 kids and I love them dearly. I just find it really hard sometimes to manage all of that and the expectations that I put on myself. But people with ADHD often excel in areas like creativity and problem solving, potentially making you seem lazy when you struggle elsewhere.
I would write lists and not be able to find the list, or I would make a system, I would forget the system.
When these girls grow up, they spend so much mental energy trying to compensate that they become depressed and they become anxious.
Now, 10 years later, Jessica coaches others with ADHD, while Libby shares about it with her nearly 2 million social media followers.
I have been stopped on the street countless times by women who have said, I never would have gone to my doctor if you hadn't shared your story.
I'm one of them.
It gives me goosebumps.
There's so much power in knowing what ADHD is and how it's impacting you, because then you can actually set up your life to be successful living with ADHD.
And that diagnosis has already allowed me to troubleshoot so many things that were so hard for me, and I am just getting started. So join me on ABC News Live as we kick off our new series, Inside ADHD. We'll have expert interviews and a first-hand look at my challenges and triumphs navigating ADHD. That starts tomorrow night, streaming on ABC News Live. Life-changing.
Yeah, did it surprise you?
It did, because I always imagined that someone with ADHD is like the doctor described, a rambunctious boy, someone who can't sit still, someone who can't study. I was always an honor student. I always excelled at work. I just had trouble with things like organization, forgetting things, misplacing things. I'm the person that my mother always said, she'd forget her head if it wasn't attached. But these were things that, like, some of it is mistaken for laziness, some of it is mistaken for just, you're just a bit scared. Airhead was one of the doctor's words that the doctor used. Thankfully, not one used to describe me, but you paint a different picture of yourself, and all of a sudden you realize, oh wow, these aren't character flaws. This isn't that I need to try harder. This is that my brain works differently. And knowing that helps you then start to troubleshoot. Wait, okay, why is this hard for me? Because I have a short-term memory problem. What can I do to help me remember? And so it's helped me change so many things.
You're gonna help a lot of people with this.
And we're still exploring meds and other things like that, but there's so much you can do even immediately that changes it like that.
Thanks for bringing the story.
Thanks for having me.